Hello and welcome to Skiltron meeting, folks. Once again, another Friday. This little space that we have where we are chatting with some friends, people that we know. And tonight I have the pleasure to have as a guest a really nice guy that we know because Skiltron has been playing in Edinburgh many times and he has been doing our sound for us. He's a sound engineer from one pub, but we are going to talk about that later on. So please welcome to Rob from The Exploited, all the way from Ireland. Hey, Rob.
Hey, all right. How's it going?
How you doing, mate?
Yeah, really good. Well, as good as people can do in this. It's we're still basically on full lockdown here in Ireland, but just getting on with stuff.
Well, but anyway, thank you for being with us tonight. It's a real pleasure to have you.
Hey, it's my pleasure to have something to do. You know what I mean?
Well, that's all about. We have to keep busy, entertain ourselves,
Yeah.
and see if we can entertain people a little bit. So, yes, tell me how we've been doing. How you been doing all this more than a year
Yeah,
since things
it's
gone
over a
to
year.
shit?
Yeah, I mean, when the shit hit the fan, I was on tour with the Exploited. I played bass in the Exploited, so we were out on tour with a new guitarist who had only played, I think, three or four gigs. That was it, and we were in New Zealand, just about to go on to Australia to finish,
I
to do sort of
remember that, yeah.
10. Yeah, and just, I mean, it was obviously problematic getting back. Got back to Edinburgh, and it's so I mean, I had no idea at the time that over a year later, we'd still be in this situation.
Yeah,
But I decided to come.
nobody did.
Yeah, exactly. And so I've been hiding out here. My parents live in southwest of Ireland, so I've been here. They bought a new house with some farmland, and there's a couple of old buildings. So I just decided to renovate one of them to make a little recording studio and a little architecture studio for myself. So that's it. That's all I've been doing for the last 12 months, basically. I picked up a guitar around Christmas again. That was it. Yeah. And I've been, just tinkering with ideas.
And where exactly
but
you're
it's,
now? It's south of Ireland.
Yeah, southwest, just in County Kerry. Yeah.
County Kerry.
Actually, the other thing I've been doing lots of is surfing over the winter.
All right.
I've managed to get in, sort of 2 or 3 times a week. Me and a couple of my buddies, because I live so close to the coast here, we can get in. We're in surfing at least twice a week, but usually sort of 3 or 4 times a week.
I can't imagine that being very
cold.
warm. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not as bad as you can imagine, but in the winter, I mean, you're wearing gloves and boots.
Yeah, with
and
the proper equipment. I think
proper equipment. It's fine. I mean, you're in the water for 2 hours, so it's pretty good. And I think surfing is, for me anyway, it's a very good de-stressor, because I think, like, you'll understand when you're used to playing gigs. That's a huge part of my life, and it's also the part where I think I probably get out a lot of my internal aggression. The stuff that just, when you get pissed off at life and over, you get on stage and it all goes away. You just, you can use a gig to get rid of all that sort of anger.
Absolutely.
Or whatever.
Absolutely.
So without that kind of that output, I suppose that I was struggling a little bit, but then getting surfing, it's shown me again. It's another sort of thing to do to stop actually getting stressed out with it.
You know what's funny? That for me it was the same last year, but I started doing a lot of mountain bike.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah,
I thought
it's a cathartic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some kind of put
You're not
yourself
thinking
out.
about anything else, but you're doing at that moment. Yeah, I actually, mountain biking is something I would really like to get into, but it's an expensive sport.
Well, if you want to get a good bike, yes, but then, I mean, going to the forest is free. So
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You're totally right. I mean, it's not like a lot of my friends nowadays. I'm at an age where a lot of my friends play golf. I fucking hate golf. I can't stand golf, man. Or the clubhouse bullshit. And when I hear how much money it costs, like, 4,000 or 5,000 pounds a year in membership fees, it's like,
only that. Yeah.
not great. For $4,000, that's like, I don't know. That's quite a lot of nice guitars you could have for $4,000 a year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that's a proper Irishman. You're drinking Guinness, right?
Guinness, exactly. Oh yeah, absolutely. But the only downside is I've just realized as well. My friends will fucking kill me for this, but I'm actually drinking it from a.
Oh, that that should be illegal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I actually don't mind Budweiser. I like beer, and I think there's very few beers that I wouldn't drink if someone gave me a bottle of Bud, hey, whatever.
Yeah, that's something that I was during the introduction. I was talking about how did we made and everything, but maybe now we are going to go deeper into that. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm actually if we are talking about that place that you've been working and we were playing, which is Bannerman's in Edinburgh,
Hmm.
place that I'm sure we both are missing a lot.
Absolutely, and
Yeah,
it's a shame. You know Bannerman's, and it's great that it's become this sort of cool event. It's a small venue, but it
yeah,
does have a lot of. I think I actually started off with Chris Smith, but then definitely Christian Kimmett, who plays bass in Warrior Soul,
absolutely.
has been in lots of night. Is a good guy. But when he started booking, and we were able to explain to the big bosses that actually we want to make it a little bit more on the kind of tour instead of just local bands, which there's nothing wrong with, and karaoke and all that.
Yeah,
We wanted to put it on a national sort of touring circuit.
yes,
And since that happened, it's lovely to hear from other bands. I work festivals, I play festivals, and when you bump into people, they genuinely like a little venue like Bannerman's because there's such a nice hub. There's a good community. So
yeah,
I genuinely miss a lot of the guys that I work with, the other engineers, the people who work behind the bar, people who work behind the scenes. It's like everybody has been pulling in the same direction for like the last 10 years, and it's been
nice.
it's a really good example of a venue where people who are passionate about music can actually achieve.
Absolutely.
It's not all doom and gloom.
It's one of those venues. We are touring a lot, and not, well, in a normal situation, and we know a lot of venues and that, but that in particular is one of those venues that you feel something different about. It's
Yes,
like
absolutely.
the atmosphere, the vibes,
When
the
I started
people.
working, yeah, sorry, when I started working there, which is about 15 years ago now or something, and it wasn't, it kind of did gigs or whatever, but they weren't of the caliber that they are now. And I always felt that we should be looking to European venues like SO36 or a
Yeah,
Secret Place de
Berlin.
Montpellier.
Yeah,
These cool, like really cool European venues, instead of just looking at Edinburgh or Glasgow or even London. I wanted us for Bannerman's to be modelled on the sort of the better end of the clubs that you kind of play when you're on tour in Europe, that are just they're always there
yep,
backstage in Munich. These
absolutely.
really cool venues, and so that we're not. I don't see us as competitors to our neighbours in Edinburgh. We are one of a number of small venues in the Cowgate, but I think we actually we need to be focusing on a bigger picture and on European tour venues, and be able to treat people who come through the door, be the musicians, journalists, management,
Yeah,
be able to treat them professionally and have a good time. But at the same time, once work is over, we can party, we can have beers. The apartment upstairs.
yeah,
If the
absolutely.
walls in that place talk,
Which we
it's
did, which we did.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But that again. That is very classic. From my experience, particularly France and Germany, maybe Switzerland, that a venue would own an apartment where the bands would stay. And in a city like Edinburgh, you'll know if you're thinking about trying to play a gig in Edinburgh, and you've got maybe a touring party of 8 or 10 people, and it's in July or August, your hotel bill will be like £1,000. It's
Absolutely.
completely
Yeah,
impossible. So being able to provide accommodation, I think there's sort of accommodation for 14 or 15 people
yeah,
comfortably in that apartment,
yeah, easily.
and
Yeah,
that's you can cook your own food, which is nice. Particularly with people who have dietary concerns, be it celiacs or if they're vegan, they can cook their own food, no problem.
being able
Wash
to
your clothes.
actually have a warm shower actually.
Wash. Oh, hallelujah! After a
which
gig,
which
which is
believe it
fun
or not
because in the
is a
UK,
luxury. It's a luxury when you're
it's
on tour.
crazy, isn't it? Because you just perform. Let's say you're on stage an hour and a half, getting spat on. It's sweaty at the very least, and not to have a hot shower after it is standard in the UK. I think that's absolutely appalling. For me as well, the thing with laundry, It's one of the most. It's like an in joke. With if you really are touring on tour buses,
Yeah.
you get pretty fucking used to like any chance you get to wash yourself and wash your clothes,
Yeah.
you jump at the opportunity. It's like the
Absolutely.
rock and roll day off on tour. Everyone's down the laundrette getting their underwear and socks clean for the following week. You know.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Yeah.
we have. Yeah, you only have need to make sure that not get too drunk in order to do all that, to remember doing your laundry and everything.
Exactly. Or there's a classic. Well, I'll do your washing this time, but you got to do it next time round for
Yeah.
me, and all of that kind of yeah.
Well, you know, we
Tour
have.
Cooper.
I was actually counting the other day, and we have played there 7 times already.
No, really, in
Yeah,
Bannerman's.
7 times. Yeah.
Jeez.
First time.
Wow.
First
I
time
suppose
was
I guess that,
2013. First time.
yeah, that would be about right. And I'm just
Yeah.
thinking because like in my brain it's only like 2015, you know, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's the
No,
2021.
we've been playing like pretty much every year since 2013, and last time was actually it was one in February 2020. Was one of our last shows before all this.
Yeah, I think it was one of the last. It was one of the last proper, you know, gigs in Bannerman's because they had to stop quite early,
Mm.
and it's a sort of a quiet enough time of year anyway, February.
Hmm. Yeah, actually, talking about that, we are going to have Christian here later on in a
Excellent.
few weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we already arranged that.
I haven't actually spoken to him properly for a while. When as Bannerman's we were developing an idea of doing we were taping gigs because we knew, you know, you
Yeah,
can't
yeah, I
actually
saw
have
that.
people in.
Yeah.
And so the idea was that we'd track actually, and I must say, big shout out to Hef and Stu Gordon, the commissioner. Between them, they've just been fucking absolutely incredible, getting like the right equipment at the, you know, at zero basically. There's a budget of very, very little, getting the equipment in to actually track bands.
Yeah.
And the James McDonald as well. Obviously, I'm here. I'm the best part of 1,000 miles away or whatever, so I can't help them out. But they got all that done, and then the day before, the very first, what the plan was to have the video piped into all of the different rooms because people were still allowed to sit in group, you know, tables of up to 4. So just treat it like a kind of listening party or a watch party for the fans of the band, so that the idea being bands could still sell a bit of merch, you know, just to try and offset how much money they've lost. You know, the average band has lost a lot of money because of COVID.
Yeah.
And just to have it like a gig atmosphere without a gig, because that was all we could do. But the day before the first one launched, the Scottish government announced that there was to be no music of any sort in any venue, even background music or television noise. So it was a big challenge and especially after the effort that, you know, for about 2 months we did, you know, a lot of kind of WhatsApp calls and Zoom calls to try and get things organized. And Christian Kimmett, obviously the linchpin, he's the main guy, had put in so many hours to then get sort of.
I know that.
Yeah.
Well, apparently next month, maybe they have good news.
Yeah, 12th of April, I believe. I'm optimistic by nature. I always have been. I don't think it does very much good to just to focus on negative or just to be kind of, you know, all doom and gloom. And I get it. I mean, this COVID situation isn't something that, like, well, certainly not, the vast majority of us could not have predicted. It's just something that's happened. So we've got to get on with it. You've got to just sort of try your best. Like what you're doing here, you probably wouldn't be doing this had it not been for it. So, you know, take a you know, shit thing like that and try and make it into
that's something funny that you say. Something funny you say that, because I have read a comment of somebody saying, not because of me, like all the streamings in general. He was saying like, this is something that bands should have done that before, actually.
Wow, yeah.
You know, but the thing is, I agree with that, but maybe the reason that they didn't is because it didn't come up with the idea because it wasn't necessary. No, I mean not that it wasn't necessary, that it wasn't something that you will think at that point.
Sorry, I think it's my video.
You're frozen. Right? I can still hear you, but you're frozen.
I just do the classic sound engineer trick of stop it, turn it off, and see if it'll start up again. I just try stopping the video.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, no, audio still good. No worries.
I don't know what's going on.
There you go. Perfect.
Right, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the age-old turn it off and turn it back on again.
So yeah, what I was saying is that somebody was saying like, why bands didn't think about this before? Well, the reason maybe is that all these kind of ideas they came up about this time, because you need to think about new ideas actually, and it's not nothing that you would think about before.
Well, I think I've personally known quite a lot of like there's different thoughts there, because we were even in Bannerman's 5 years ago talking about only for sold out shows, because our occupancy is so
I know
so
where you
small.
go.
Yeah, so we were toying with the idea of being able to, put cameras up and be able to broadcast live or with a short delay for people who wanted to attend a show but couldn't, and only for sold out gigs, because
exactly,
as a business, it would be fucking stupid, basically. But I do think, and a lot of other, I'm sure a lot of other bands, there was, I know Ramage Inc. Now that would be one of the bands who would have been much more, I don't know if you know Brian Ramage, Edinburgh prog metal band. And they're really...
Yeah. I think I know the
name, they're sort of there's four sound engineers in that band, and they're all quite tech. Particularly Hef, who works in Bannerman's, is really like up to scratch with everything that's possible. And the fact he's the guy that can tell you like, oh, that used to cost like $5,000, but now you can pick this thing up on eBay that does the same thing for £100. So he's one of those dudes, kind of DIY really. And so I think some bands were already going down that route. They were trying to get use the internet as it is.
Well, I'm doing this with a free software, so there you go.
For their own, for cheap. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That this that I'm doing is over a free software, so there you go.
Yeah. Then the other side of it, I mean, this is, I remember I've toured, I used to play in Karma to Burn for a while, which was really, for me, it was such an awesome gig, because it was one of my favorite bands when I was growing up. So to be able to like play the tunes that I was, smoking joints and drinking beer to when I was a teenager was fucking rad. But one of the management and sound engineer, Jesse, he owns a studio in Switzerland. He's friends with some other, quite big names. And I remember learning that Linkin Park, when they toured, had double redundancy. So for, like their front of house mix console, there would actually be three. So there'd be one there, a spare, and another one. Yeah. But they recorded every show for their fans online. They were all recorded. And overnight, when they were traveling, there was some, a couple of other engineers mixing and mastering the previous night's concert. So it was actually
straight away,
the following day. And I remember just thinking, like, how can that be financially possible, until I realized that actually, the fans are paying like, $10 a month to be part of this online community.
Yeah.
And so they get all the, I get it, and I always respected that. Like Pearl Jam used to do quite a lot of that. They used to basically bootleg their own gigs.
Yeah.
And you could pay for the CD.
I think Metallica did
the
same,
post it out to you.
But even with videos. Like...
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And like, but there you go. Metallica's kind of budget, I mean, it's pretty legendary. They're one of the bands, and Rammstein actually as well. The money that it costs to put on their show is such that there isn't that much profit. They don't actually make very much money from, like, even though it's $120 a ticket or whatever it is. All that money goes straight into the show. They're, to keep with Metallica, whatever is it, like 40 different trucks on the road with A/B stuff. So they've got, two setups of everything. It's a whole industry of itself.
Yeah.
But I think now for a lot of people, I know I am anyway. I mean, I play in a punk band, and it's always been an ethos to try and, do shit yourself. Why be part of a kind of, a label who are going to dictate to you when you could just do it yourself and be in control of all the actual smaller decisions that end up pissing people off. That's one of the things that I've noticed from working gigs, that usually the people in the bands are generally fine. It's the other, like, hangers-on or management that are just dickheads that you never want to have to speak to.
Going back to the subject when we were saying about trying to take the positive out from the negative, actually. You know,
Hmm.
something that we were saying with the previous people that we were chatting in this space, it was that what I think personally is that whenever this goes to a back to a relative normality, I think that people,
Hmm.
and I mean like people, not from the band, like the people from the audience and everything, they are going to be more. They are going to appreciate more the opportunity. You know what I mean with this?
Yeah,
Is that
I
like
think you're
appreciate
right.
more the effort and going to gigs and because if there was something like something that your whole life you've been given by granted and then you don't have it anymore
Yeah,
overnight.
absolutely. And there's a level of understanding as well that now it's hard to explain to people the kind of what goes on behind the scenes. A lot of people buy a ticket for a gig and they in their mind that gig starts when they enter that room.
Yeah.
You know that a year before that gig, if it's a big gig, there'll have been negotiations between an agent and a promoter and then with a venue and then there'll been even a couple of months beforehand a tech spec and there'll be arguments about this and
Easy
that and then
ones,
support
hard
bands.
ones.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like there's all this huge stuff that like I would say. I mean, I'm guessing, but like about half of the audience have absolutely no idea that goes on. And something like
Maybe.
coronavirus. Yeah, I think with COVID-19, people have actually seen a little bit more of the live music industry than they were previously. I think actually what's happened is a lot of promoters, especially big festivals, it was never in their best interest to be really uh, honest, maybe, or to highlight exactly how much work and what goes
Yeah,
on in order
but
for a
now they
festival
had
to
to.
happen. They've had to
Yeah.
tell people like, look, and I mean, I'm quite cynical about it. Quite a lot of the festivals, particularly, we're saying in the UK that they're saying they're definitely going to go ahead.
Mm.
My feeling is that they're probably not, and they're having to say that because their insurers will not
Yeah.
underwrite the insurance,
Yeah.
and that
They
the
need to
government
keep
have to tell
they
them
need
they
to keep
can't.
it on until certain point because if they cancel it before that, the insurance doesn't pay. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a friend of mine was talking about this last night. Another very good sound engineer, Jason Looney, was saying that there's something. He just was reading. It was either 60 days or 90 days. That there's now. This is in Ireland now. I'm not sure if this will be
Yeah.
the case anywhere else. That if they're just basically not allowed to cancel after the 60 day. So if they decide it's going ahead,
Or
let's say
maybe
they say that on the
it's
first
something
week of
like
the gig.
they can't cancel because of the insurance until the government say that it's not going to be possible to
Precisely.
go ahead with the festival or something. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see. I think it's going to be an absolute shit show for and my heart goes out to a lot of like genuine promoters. But if they've sold tickets, we'll say Reading and Leeds Festival is a good example.
Yeah.
They sold tickets last year at full occupancy. So what I'm guessing is like 70,000 people or something, And now they're in a situation where I would be very surprised if they're going to be allowed to admit anything over sort of 25,000 people. I'm pretty sure there has to be a huge limitation on the number of people
Yeah.
on site.
And
How
what the
do they
problem?
tell 40,000 people? What are they going to do? Is it going to be like a lottery?
Through the
Is it
lottery,
going to
yeah,
be like,
that's right.
hey, fuck, oh, you can go, but your girlfriend got to stay at home. That's not going to fly well. Yeah.
Yeah, but another thing is that how like supportive is people actually because festivals that they were sold out in 2020 and then
Yeah.
rescheduled for 21 and now rescheduled for 22, like
2022. Yeah.
more than 90% of the people they still keep the ticket.
Yeah.
So that shows also how people is supporting them.
Dude, even like I don't want to say this, like I want to get back to Edinburgh as soon as possible. I'm waiting for my parents to get their vaccine because I'm here, doing the grocery shopping. My parents are in their 70s, and so I'm just trying to look after them. But I bought a ticket last week to go and see Skindred are playing in Glasgow in October. Now Skindred are good buddies. They're like, it would generally, I'd probably try and get in touch with Mikey Demas, their guitarist, and say, hey man, any chance you can stick me on the guest list? But there's no fucking way I'm going to be doing that for the next few years. I think it's like,
yep, I was thinking about that also.
Yeah, it's time to actually own it and just buy a ticket.
Yeah. I actually funny thing that you mentioned them because I saw them in Edinburgh actually live in I think it was 2015.
In Studio 24.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, in
Yeah, that
the
would have been
Rest in Peace Studio 24.
yeah, I actually, man, just the other day I got a couple of pieces of the wall. I'm making them into, I'm mounting them on a frame, just like literally a couple, like 4 different bits of the plaster from the wall on the
All
dance
right.
floor. Yeah, yeah. The good friend of mine, Shekinah, sent them on when they were demolishing. She obviously jumped in over the.
That was a shame. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a crying shame. A venue like Studio 24, there should never have been a reason for that. A need for that place to be shut down the way it was. And it pissed me off having worked there. I always remember thinking, like, if this was in Germany, the staff, we would have been able to get together, approach a bank and cooperatively buy the venue and run it as a business. But because it's the UK and it's next to the Scottish Parliament, it was just a case of, no, you can't do that. You're it's getting knocked and it's going to get turned into like fucking more luxury apartments, for yuppies to live. That's it.
I don't know if that was the same case that I never been there, but I know. I mean, I didn't get to know it, but I know there was another legendary venue actually called The Venue.
Oh, the venue, yeah. Just at the other, it's now the gallery. It's an art gallery.
Was it the same case?
Like, pretty much. Yeah. It was pretty. Yeah. They didn't have the same. We had one complainant. I suppose legally, you got to be careful. But there was one complainant for Studio 24 who used to. He lived quite close to it, and he'd been advised that his property value would go up if when this nightclub got shut down. And so he just used to complain serially, and every time he complained, it meant that we had to go to court to defend, or that Studio 24 had to go to court to defend themselves, costing, just to get a barrister to represent you, all of these mechanical monies every week or every couple of weeks. And he would do it very often. There would be times where there was no club on, like there was nobody in the building, and he would complain. And then we would like provide evidence saying, like, look, he's just a nuisance complainant because this
spending money out of nowhere.
And it was bullshit. And it's really unfair that a place, because it was heavy metal and dance music, which if you're speaking to someone who's actually apportioning money in the UK system for arts, they would say that, like, that's not really viable. But then opera gets like 90% of the budget. How is that any more viable, if you know what I mean? It's ridiculous that they're supporting one side of a cultural, like musical culture, and just saying, well, if it doesn't make enough money, why should we support it? So, well, as in that's totally bullshit stance. But that's exactly what happened there. There was at no point was there ever any kind of at the City of Edinburgh Council saying, "Oh, well, we can help you out. We can make sure that this venue can survive." I mean, Nirvana played there. Even like there was that place has heritage, and was really cool. For me personally, I worked there as the sound engineer, and one of the best places I've ever worked in my whole life. Like it was like a family.
Been a couple of times. Been a couple of gigs there. I've seen Steve Harris with solo project British Lion.
British Lion, yeah. I remember missing. I was away on tour. I think Matt Justice probably did sound for that. Who's now running like Little Angel and Opium.
And a couple of the what was that metal party or something that they were having place there.
He still does that shit.
Yeah, I don't remember the name, but
keep it steel.
Yeah,
keep it steel.
That's the one,
yeah. He's still doing those, and like he's got like. There's always loads of really fun, stupid stuff like corpse painting going on, and like competitions on stage with Shawnee D from Certain Death, usually as a compare, like bottles of Buckfast. I think actually, and I'm glad to see that Matt Justice. He's probably the kind of guy that can take a venue like Opium, which I like it. It's whatever, but it'll need to get. It'll be great to see it as a kind of hard rock, heavy metal pub again, instead of it sort of became a little bit more of a sort of student hangout or whatever.
Yeah, people actually were complaining about that the Opium also wasn't what used to be.
I mean, I remember when that place opened. It was. It used to be a place. Well, there was 2 venues: Legends and the Attic. Now, the Attic was a really cool venue upstairs, which is now upstairs in Opium, and they used to do some really good gigs. mostly, like local, like the Swell Bellies. I remember seeing there, and Legends was pretty rough. It was like a biker bar, a big
All right.
Vince and Andy on the door. Yeah, yeah. It was like a proper rock bar, a fucking amazing jukebox. Like probably the best like metal and rock jukebox. Although props, the Black Bull still has a great jukebox.
Good thing about
Um,
the Edinburgh nightlife in general is like whatever you like, whatever you want to do. It's like okay, this is the place for do this. This is the place to that. It's like very well.
yeah, I think it's really strange actually, but I think Edinburgh was quite fortunate that the size it's big enough that it'll accommodate all those different niche, dubstep or your drum and bass or your hip hop or your metal.
Mm,
There'll be places, but it's not big enough that within those different genres of music that there won't be like little subgenres. Like if you're into your hardcore, you can't go to a punk show,
yeah.
which I do see sometimes in Glasgow, which is not that much bigger, but like, and certainly in London, if if
Oh
it's
yeah.
not the right like specific exactly metal like your kind of metal, if it's not that, well, they just won't turn out. Or like you'll play a gig and
Yeah.
like the support bands will sit in their van outside because they won't watch any of the other bands. It's like, well, it's weird.
Yeah, but well, maybe also that is one of the things that they are going to change now. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's a really interesting time, and I really really hope that people realize that the initiative is with us, with musicians, and with the people who listen. I've never met a musician who isn't in some way a fan of music. We all like
Yeah.
listening to
Well,
other
I
music or
am.
whatever, and so we are the driving force. But it's been packaged for so long that record labels and big distribution deals and all the rest of it are the only way you can play the game. But that's bullshit, and we don't. I mean, even the biggest pop acts in the world, Taylor Swift, for example, she doesn't own her own music. Some fucking hedge fund sold all her back catalog not long ago. That kind of stuff is just, that to me is ridiculous. That's like, it's a symptom of what's wrong with the music industry. And I think an opportunity like COVID, it could be a reset, and you could just explain that like all those guys who are making they are making very very good money from talented musicians, and they have no talent. All they're good at is talking shit and like taking money.
Basically. So,
Yeah.
be, did you have any upcoming tour that you have rescheduled or you didn't have, but now you're thinking about putting? Well, I'm not that that's
Yeah.
not your job, but
As far
did
as
you
I
hear
know,
that there's something coming up?
yeah, as well as far as I know, with Exploited, we're no, this all of this is quite fluid, obviously, all the time. But there's a Russian tour that looks quite promising for the end of this year, and Australia. I think we've been anxious to get back to Australia because that was, for us as a band, it feels as though that we owe Australia the gigs that we couldn't do first,
Yeah,
if you know what I mean.
yeah.
But as soon as it's possible, so I think as early as possible next year, that would be the plan. But it's again like I only play bass and Exploited. I have
Yeah.
absolutely
No,
nothing to
that's what
do
I
with
mean. That if you are aware of
yeah.
what's going on.
I know that there was one of generally in South America. He's now in Germany, but he was the tour manager and agent in South America for us. Matthias Prill. He's a great dude, and actually like he's one of these. He actually he used to live with Igor Cavalera and stuff. Like he's a super, like a real dude. But he's also the bands that he works with. He cares about, and he really wants to do kind of good shit. So there was a plan of doing a streaming gig with Exploited. Now I don't know when that's scheduled
Yeah.
for. But I'll have to find out.
That was something that
I
we
imagine that would be
actually will be impossible for us because we live all in different countries. So
different country. Yeah, yeah. At least with us, it's just me. I've got to get back to Edinburgh,
yeah, and that's it.
basically. Yeah, and that's it. Because the other two are brothers.
Are you
yeah.
actually like impossible to go back right now? Even like
Yeah,
if you have
yeah, pretty
like,
much. Well, legally, it's. I think no. I think that there is a mechanism, but it's only for essential travel. Legally, I'm not supposed to travel more than 5 kilometers
but
without
you don't have
having
like legal residence there or something.
in Ireland or in the UK.
No,
Well, it's weird.
yeah. Now it's kind of weird, no? Now it's...
After Brexit, and actually because we were supposed to tour in Russia this is something. I mean, I have no problem saying that. Like Brexit, I was very vocally anti-Brexit.
I can imagine.
The fucking idea. It's just so stupid. But you get people that believe people like Boris Johnson, and then you get people who actually realize that someone like him or Nigel Farage, all they're doing is serving their own interests. They're not there to look after anybody else. Yeah. But after Brexit, so we were supposed to be going to Russia in March, like now-ish, I think originally was the plan. And so I had to get the Home Office to notarize my fucking residency status. But as an Irish citizen, I don't have to, because after Brexit, Ireland and the UK still have a unilateral agreement about like freedom of travel and residency. So I don't actually have to get the form for the whatever it is, post-Brexit European relocation thing.
But the whole thing is so crazy.
It is, exactly, yeah, and it's bureaucracy.
For example,
it's like, so the Russian.
Are you able to go to let's say Belfast if you want right now? Are you able to do that?
No, I'm not even. I mean, genuinely, I'm not supposed to go more than 5 kilometers.
Oh, right.
At the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Unless it's an essential reason for travel. Now, I'm going to have to learn to drive. I never used to drive, not since I was like 17, 18. So I don't have a driving license. So I need to sort that out. I've bought a car, and I need to get myself. I'm learning to drive at fucking 40. You know what I mean?
Well, actually, now they say that they are going to build a bridge, right? They've been saying that.
I can't see that happening. I mean, they're saying that, but it's I believe for all the munitions after the Second World War, a lot of the surplus munitions were dumped there, so it'll be pretty dangerous, like very dangerous.
Well, that will make sense maybe if they do it between Republic of Ireland and Scotland.
I love it, yeah. Because there's a ferry from.
Maybe that will be the same Europe again soon.
Oh, actually, yeah. It'll be. I'm sure that people who are into, smuggling, they're fucking loving this. Like, this situation is ideal for, like, goods. I can only imagine things like cigarettes or whatever it might be. In the European Union, they might be really cheap, but in the UK, really expensive, or vice versa. So, like, that essentially, on this island, means you can drive like 10 miles across the border.
Like we were talking before, like with the ferry in the Baltics.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Now I remember stories. We used to tour with lots of bands. I have a lot of friends from that part of the world, from Finland particularly, Norway and Finland, and that ferry. I don't think there's anything as insane. It reminds me of the scene in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where everyone's just high and drunk. And that ferry is very much like that. It's just
people just get
lunacy.
Well, not right now, obviously, but they used to get into a ferry and not even get out of it. Just come back.
Not even leave the
That's
ferry.
it.
Yeah. I remember a guy playing golf with empty vodka bottles and like smashing empty vodka bottles. You're like kids walking around. Whoa.
Yeah, because
Tallinn, but actually, and it's funny because both those cities, like Helsinki and Tallinn, for playing for band like the Exploited to perform in, it's always really, really great. Like really, I think in Finland particularly, Exploited have really good fans, really passionate fans who are glad that we've made the effort to go. I gather a lot of bands can't, don't get the opportunity, because it is quite an endeavor to be able to get, gigs booked and pay for everything. And the same, I mean, Tallinn, although I wouldn't like to drive too much in Estonia because the roads are pretty brutal, but like traveling around in that country, people seem to be really receptive and glad that you've made the effort to go and play in those cities,
Yeah, and actually talking about the bridge, they've been talking about building a tunnel between Tallinn and Helsinki.
Okay, really? Yeah, I didn't hear. That's cool.
Yeah. There was the map and everything, but still something that it will take like so many years if it happened.
Yeah, it's at Malmo and Copenhagen, the half tunnel, half bridge.
Yeah, what is that one that they have that you go with the train and actually the train get inside the ferry and then leave the ferry again?
Wow, really?
It's between Germany and Denmark. Yeah, I've been there before. So you go with the train, like normal train in Germany, and then you go to the ferry port, and the actual train gets inside the ferry. There's a train track in the ferry. Yeah, that's unique.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I like, and probably like yourself, if there's two ways to look at traveling. If you really dislike traveling, it'll be hell on earth. So it's good to try and engage with it and just be aware of where you are and like cool things to go and see. Obviously, with a schedule, like, you know, if it's full on tour gig, you know, 7 days a week with 800-mile drives every night, you don't get to see very much. That's a given. But it's nice to be able to look forward to, like, oh, we've got 2 days off in Milan. Yeah, let's go and, you know, let's check out some of fashion or whatever it is you want to go to.
Yeah, we always try to make something like that when it's some place that we have never been, or some place that is unique, or that you don't know if you're ever going to go back or something like that.
I always think it's quite a fortunate position to be in as a musician, because more or less by default there will be somebody local who's going to be dealing with you, you know, maybe it's a translator or whatever, and it's like that's local knowledge, so you can ask them and be like, hey, what's the best thing to do here, you know, what's cool. Oh, there's a water park, or you can go and shoot machine guns in the desert, or whatever it might be. But the fact that you've got that local knowledge, not all tourists, you know, it's not accessible. If you just turn up to a place, you know, you're very unlikely to be presented with the same opportunities as you are when you're on tour.
And I guess you are missing all that as much as me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, man.
It's funny as well, like keeping in touch with, you know, there's people you keep in touch with, and just thinking like, man, I'd love to be, you know, Southern California now, or you know,
I've never been there, so I don't. I've never been to North America at all.
I was born in Canada, believe it or not. Not many people know that.
I think I knew that. You told me that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It makes it even more difficult when we're talking about like international travel and passports and stuff. Although I'm Irish, but being born in Canada, even recently having to do some forms for a thing, and it was they just didn't. There wasn't a box to tick for my situation, so I had to like spend an hour on the phone trying to just say, look, why is this so difficult?
And even there, it's going to take like much more, maybe, to return all the touring activity and everything than in Europe.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I feel really sorry for smaller bands, medium-sized bands now, because the European market. I think France has said that bands can tour without visas for up to 60 days or something. But it's pretty difficult for UK-based bands to tour in Europe.
Yeah,
without, you know.
And also the other way around, it's going to be very hard for us to return there now.
Exactly, getting into the UK, yeah, and it's a serious problem. We've, you know, in the last decade, American bands in the UK and UK bands going to America, it has become problematic, and it's not as straightforward, and it keeps changing. That's one of the things I've noticed. You know, we go down to London, and in person have to be interviewed for a work visa to go on maybe a month tour, which is okay. But then the goalposts change. There's a different thing. There's another, you've got to pay now, you've got to pay this, or you've got to have this document. And there's a pretty burgeoning industry of people that just advise how to, like, that you need this, that you need that, and like, will basically hold your hand for the whole process. And I think that's really, it's kind of sinister that if you can afford it, it's fine. But if you can't, you just forget about it. And I think it's a shame for it. In my mind, I'd nearly prefer it to be the other way around, where bands who are not going to make any money, really, they just want to go and play gigs, maybe tour and sell some T-shirts. It should be easier for them to go and do that than the super mega stars who've got billions and they're fucking making another 5 million on a tour. Like, why are they the ones that are automatically flagged through, and the people who are just trying, who are passionate about it and just want to try, are all in a situation where it's almost impossible unless they're privately wealthy. As a band, they just can't afford to do it anymore.
Yeah. Well, of course, we are all hoping that whenever we are able to, restrictions, they are going to be easier, and maybe they are not going to make it so complicated for us. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I'm sure we agree.
I think the whole industry, the whole live music industry, is going to have to change, or will by default. After this,
already did.
It's unlikely that Yeah, exactly. It already has. It'll be interesting to see how different places cope with what's coming, and how we kind of have to get on with it. Personally, I really hope that it is a sort of a situation where the rebirth for smaller venues and smaller, like go back to what it was with having, brilliant, sweaty 200 capacity clubs and not so many 4,500 capacity arenas. I don't really. I remember seeing Lamb of God in Glasgow in the Academy, and I think I was there with Matt Justice, and he'd damaged his knee, so we were sitting at the back and just being like, okay, it's a gig, but it's not really a gig. It's like, I like Lamb of God, they're a really good band or whatever, but sitting down watching them on a stage, it's like, this is fucking bullshit. This is not what a heavy metal gig should be like. I don't, it was like the least intimate thing. Yeah.
Well, for example, that you've been saying about going back to the roots and everything. I've been talking to Christian about all this and everything, and I say, listen, man, whenever we are able to go back there, it's my promise we are going to make a live video, live at Bannerman's Edinburgh.
Yes.
Like official release, or at least, I don't know, a YouTube release or something. But we are going to make like something document that we've been there. I promise him that will be the case whenever it is possible. And I told you, oh, you're frozen again. No, there you came back. The what we told before, that we've been there 7 times, I told you, and you know how much we love there and how much we love the place and everything. So it's it will.
And actually, what's extra cool is the work that Stu, James, and Hef, and the other James have put in. Means that we'll on site we'll have, like, there's a camera guy who's there's a video editing suite, and we've got it'll actually be fairly painless instead of having to bring in, because doing a live DVDs, shit, that's a lot of money, and a lot. It can't. Traditionally, like, even just having 4 or 5 cameras, that's not cheap if you've got to be able to make someone operate them. Yeah, for sure. Whereas a place like Bannerman's now, having static cameras and video editing, what it is, you can have static cameras that you can just make, use the software to make them appear like they're moving and stuff. It's pretty cool.
And of course, if that happens, you are going to be our sound guy, so right?
Well, I hope so. Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, it's really weird, actually, because I really I miss playing, but there is something different I used to get from mixing bands. It's a different, really pleasant. It's like a cool thing that front of house mixing, being the person that is sort of mixing what everybody hears, not just what the musicians are hearing on stage, or not just taping it so that you can edit it later, but in that moment making it sound as good as possible for all the people in the room. I really miss that challenge. It's sort of like,
actually that was something that I was really interested in learning and everything, but somehow I never had the opportunity, or maybe I didn't have the time to do it. I'm very able to manage everything in studio during mixing of an album and everything, but of course mixing live, I think, is a complete different thing. And I was always thinking about. I was always thinking about that would be a very cool thing to learn and everything, but for some reason or another, I never had the time.
What's funny is you and I then are kind of pretty much opposites. I very, very rarely did anything in studio world. Now, when I was younger, I used to really dislike. It was tracking drums. I used to fucking do. I used to get really pissed off with, like, sitting there and, like, just spending 4 hours on a snare. I didn't have the patience for it. Whereas live, it's like,
no, but okay. What I mean not recording, but once the album is done, I'm always managing everything, how to do the mix, and even some part of the master and everything. But yeah, I was always wanted to try the live world.
The principles are the same, but it's quite rare actually that you get like really top tier engineer who's really really good in the studio and good live. I think if you're good in the studio, it'll be a lot easier to be a good live engineer. But if you're a good live engineer, that doesn't mean you're going to be any good in the studio.
It's not any guarantee that it's going to happen that way.
Yeah, because it's just a very different discipline. I think there's times, studio engineers are a lot more technical minded, I would say. That they have to be because of what they're doing, whereas live engineers tend to be more of the engineer, as in problem solving, mixing a thing, and knowing that there's limitations to what can be achieved. You're
and also maybe
the best speakers in the world, the best equipment in the world, there are still things that are absolutely impossible to make happen on a live console that you can do in a studio.
Whatever happened in a studio, you can always take the time to figure it out what's going on. When it's live, you need to do it right there, and there's no time.
I understand playback is and more actually in the last sort of, I would say 15 years, playback and having backing tracks or whatever you want to call it, is a live thing that people, that's great. It improves the experience for the audience. That's all good. I do kind of some bands, man, it's like there's fuck all live happening. Everything's like,
too much.
You see these like multi-chorus going out and it's just like you've got 36 stereo channels of playback and like there's like some dudes jumping about the stage at guitar and it's like, PFL, what's going on in that?
I know.
What's this track? It's like nothing. That's not in the mix. It's like, all right. So it's basically dubbed, but because it's like hard rock or metal, there's certain bands that I've seen. It's just pretty embarrassing if I was a musician.
Those very symphonic metal scenes that they have voices all over the place and everything. I know. And I remember when I was telling you now that how you need to be able to handle things like very quickly live. I don't know if you remember when one time we played there and you were doing the sound and we even played with two bagpipers. Actually, we have one guest, which is Duncan from Edinburgh, and he forgot his wireless system. And somehow you figured it out. Wireless system, which you just put like one of those like one of those microphones that you use for the toms on drums, and you just add it with the cable. But there was a cable, but he was still able to move.
Yeah, that's right. I think I had to kind of jimmy up a little clip that would work. Yeah.
So it was like a wireless.
It was a bagpipes.
Yeah.
I did. In a room like Bannerman's, there's very little bagpipes you'll need to put in the fucking PA as well. Like I knew it's like it's gonna like if he's on that side of the stage, I'll put a little bit in the speakers opposite to make it a little bit more level.
You know what the thing is?
Loud.
That always happens when we go to a new venue and we are sound checking and they hear the bagpipes. Like, are you actually going to put microphones on that? and then when they, because we are just like 5, but we are very loud. And then when they see how loud is the band, and it's like, okay, we also need amplification for the bagpipes. They realize it then.
I think for me, when I'm setting up for things like that, I'd always like to have everything you could possibly do. If you've got the channels and it's an extra 5 minutes to run cables and put a mic on it, even if you think you're probably not going to need it, later on, that might be the save. That might be the coolest thing about the show is the fact that like you put an extra condenser mic on a piano or something, just something that at the setup you think you probably won't need, but then because you have it and you use it and it can make the whole gig experience that little bit better. I love that kind of work. It's something that I've always as a fan of music, when you go to a gig and it sounds great and the gig is exactly what you really want it to be like, I think that's a really it's like a vocation. If that's your reason for doing it, you have to do it 100% of the time.
Yeah. That was a very, very funny thing that I just remembered it now when we were talking about that. And that's what I mean, that whenever we are able to go back, we want you behind the desk.
Cool, man.
But
Yeah.
Rob,
Hey, sorry, one second.
Yeah.
I'm get a beer. Just one sec.
yeah, go for it. Oh, it's just there. Yeah, we can see plenty on your fridge.
Yeah, always. Oh, yeah.
But anyway,
In
Rob,
fact, it was stupid. Yep.
I was just about to say that it was a pleasure to have you here. I think it was a very, very nice chat, and it felt like
Absolutely, man.
kind of being on the pub and everything.
Oh, the pub.
I mean, we wish, but yeah.
But you know what, man? It's going to be the pub will be back soon, and we'll all be able to get back to gigs, and we'll probably in 4 or 5 years' time there'll be some great albums like that wouldn't have gotten written. There'll be great paintings, amazing books, all this other stuff that just wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this. Unfortunately, during it, it's absolute bullshit, and it's a fucking nightmare. But stay positive, I guess, and hopefully things are going to get a lot better very soon.
Always. That's the way. If not, we wouldn't be here. Okay. Anyway, Rob, wish you a good night, good weekend. And again, it was a pleasure, and thank you for being with us tonight.
My pleasure.
And goodbye, everybody. Good night, good morning,
Ciao.
whenever you're watching from. Bye-bye.
All good?